what we found is with some, we called them PDPs, product detail pages. On some pages, customers would come and look and then leave. And we found that there were some trends with that with types of detail pages, either things that were expensive because people needed more information about them, or things that may be more cognitively complex, where people would need information about it. And I mean something where you would want to learn a little bit more. And so we started testing, can we produce content to help people understand what the product is so that they don't come, look, and get confused and leave? And so we started testing that, and we tested that with some of the brands directly, where we would work with them to find influencers who truly used the product. None of it was fake news, fake people using the products, but we would find people who truly loved them, and we would get videos. And what we found is when we had videos on these PDPs, the higher price or more complicated products, customers would come and they would click and they would learn a little bit more. And then either they would add it to their cart and purchase, or they would go and purchase something different and similar because they would have gotten the information that they needed.
Welcome back to Generation Influence, a podcast focusing on the brand marketers working behind the scenes, driving change and innovation in e-commerce and influencer marketing. We're coming to you from the future today, as our guest, Amber Taylor, is a full day ahead of us in New Zealand. Amber is the Chief Digital Product Officer at Les Mills, a fascinating fitness company. I'm really excited about this one. Welcome, Amber. Tell us a bit about your career trajectory and what was compelling enough about Les Mills to convince you to move literally half a world away.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be chatting with you again. I'll start with the why on Les Mills first, and then I can tell you a bit more about the career trajectory, not the whole story, because we'd need probably a 5-hour podcast for that. But Les Mills is a 50-plus-year-old startup, we like to say, and we're just picking up speed. We are a fitness company based out of New Zealand, but we're in 105 different countries. Our heritage is in producing great group fitness content to music, where we help people move and be inspired. We license content to clubs, and we certify and train instructors. So we're in nearly 25,000 clubs. We've trained and certified over 110,000 instructors. And then more recently, we've launched a direct to consumer experience called Les Mills Plus. We actually call them movers, people we move, where movers can engage in our content on their cell phone, on their desktop, from their TV, anywhere outside of the gym, in their home or on the road. And we think of that as a complementary experience where it's truly omni fitness, because what we're finding a lot is people like to work out in the club, and they also like to have a digital experience to complement that when they're not in the club, and we want to serve both. And we're also finding that both help the full ecosystem perform better. It lifts the clubs, it lifts the instructors, and it helps movers move at home, do what they want to do. We want to get people moving both for mental and physical more and more. Les Mills' why really resonates with my personal why, which is part of why we moved halfway around the world. But it's all about a fitter planet. And what we mean by that is we want to get people moving. We have something called Born to Move content, which is content for kids ages 2 to 16. And we've been rolling that out for free in clubs across the US, and there's some more coming there. We also, anytime a club licenses or an instructor gets certified, we plant trees in sub-Saharan Africa. So we truly mean fitter planet, both from we want the longevity of the planet to serve us and the planet well, and we want people moving and feeling better. So that's my why for being here. That's a little bit about what Les Mills does. If people haven't heard of Les Mills, the career trajectory one, I'll give you the TLDR on it. I actually started my career out of college teaching special ed, which is not marketing, not digital, not technology, but that is the epitome of a human business. It's learning and working with and actually getting to learn from people. I taught children and adults with learning difficulties, and then somehow fell into technology, living in the Bay Area and growing up in California. I think that's just kind of what you do. It's in your backyard. And I worked for big web middleware companies, Tibco, doing international marketing, all their websites and email, and then open source web middleware, MuleSoft, and then landed at Amazon, which is where I got the benefit of meeting you.
Yeah.
And which I'm so grateful for still, because that was fun and it's still fun getting to know you 10 years later, but got to work on influencer content and video, live stream video, whole bunch of different stuff, chatbots. We can talk more about it if we go there. And then Nike, where I got to work in MarTech and personalization. So long meandering, but it wound me up on the other side of the planet in this awesome country, New Zealand.
I mean, that is quite the journey from special ed to fitness in New Zealand. I love the human angle that goes through all of it. And I love the fact that you allowed your passion. You were brave in so many of those transitions, like to go from the education system to high tech to, to traveling around the world. And it seemed like you are in your dream job, which it's interesting because I feel like figuring out how can you work around your passions and follow your dreams, yet still not lose track of what you're good at and where you can truly add value is a really tough balance for people to hit. And you've done that. So hopefully people will be able to take some of those themes away from today's conversation. The other thing which we haven't done, and I know we'll get back to this as we go through, but I definitely want to hear more about, we haven't had a lot on the podcast about business to business marketing versus business to consumer. And so you're kind of doing both for sure. But I think thinking through some of those themes and also services, a lot of the podcast is typically around brand marketers working with physical products. You're doing what I again would call not so much physical, but services and applications. So I hope we get to touch on all of that. But before we do that, let's back up a little and do a bit of the career progression. And we'll go backwards step by step. So prior to Les Mills, you were at Nike. Prior to that, you were at Amazon. As you said, that's where we got to work together, which was amazing. And so let's start with Amazon. Most specifically, at Amazon, you helped launch Amazon Video Shorts, which has proven to be this remarkably durable feature on product detail pages. It's having a bigger impact than ever. Again, I don't know how closely you continue to track it, but I can tell you from personal experience with our clients, it's an area that's thriving, only gets more and more attention. But again, 7, 8, 9 years ago when we were doing that, what was the initial idea and insight of having videos on the page that weren't, directly uploaded by the manufacturer in the hero area? What were you guys thinking? What were you hoping to accomplish?
I have to go in my back in time machine a little bit to think back to then. But at the time, I was in the video advertising team at Amazon, and our charter was to look at how can we make revenue from video. But as I hope people know, Amazon is a customer business. All they want to do is make it easier for people to find everything they want to purchase on the planet, make it dead simple to shop, and make it a no-brainer. And so we really had to obsess, are there customer pain points where we have an opportunity to solve something that's hard for people? And or are there areas where we could delight people when they're coming to shop, to search, browse? Sometimes people just shop and put stuff in their cart because it's fun. I'm guilty of that, don't judge. And what we found is with some, we called them PDPs, product detail pages. On some pages, customers would come and look and then leave. And we found that there were some trends with that, with types of detail pages, either things that were expensive because people needed more information about them, or things that may be more cognitively complex where people would need information about it. And I mean something where you would want to learn a little bit more. And so we started testing, can we produce content to help people understand what the product is so that they don't come, look, and get confused and leave? And so we started testing that, and we tested that with some of the brands directly, where we would work with them to find influencers who truly used the product. None of it was fake news, fake people using the products, but we would find people who truly loved them and we would get videos. And what we found is when we had videos on these PDPs, the higher price or more complicated products, customers would come and they would click and they would learn a little bit more. And then either they would add it to their cart and purchase, or they would go and purchase something different and similar because they would have gotten the information that they needed. So while it started with a, hey, can we monetize through advertising? It actually ended with a, what's the customer problem and how do we make it so delightful and simple for what the customer needs? And how do we build more of an ecosystem where we can serve them with information and then let the information grow, building off the back of reviews and comments on detail pages. Videos were a perfect complement to that. And as you pointed out, continue to grow, because that's a big way in how people are consuming content now.
Yeah. It is wild to think that it was a product actually started by the advertising team and yet has remained so durable and grown in so many different ways. I think people will be fascinated to learn that kind of innovation came out of that group.
Yeah. Well, and here's the even funnier story. And some people may have heard about the frugality or the door desks or kind of the olden days of Amazon. But when we first started it, our head of HR and I took over a conference room and we literally built a door desk, bought a video camera off Amazon that we had seen a video for to learn how it worked, built our own studio and tested 100 videos ourselves to see if the idea had any merit. It was hilarious. Thankfully, none of those videos are published because we are absolutely not influencers or video content producers. But it was something that started with a problem, and then we were super scrappy in how can we test this? And then we tested it on a couple detail pages and we saw, hey, this is actually really helping people. And it kept going from there. It was a lot of fun.
That is amazing. Yeah, one of the things we make all the employees do at gen.video is to make, quasi influencer videos just so people can see just how hard it is to make a quality video. It is tough with good production, good demonstration, articulate. It is no joke. And it's amazing for content that is, down below the fold. The conversion rate on that content is exceedingly high. I mean, it is wild. So there's definitely massive customer utility there. And it really has led to Amazon continuing to be at the forefront of video on retail with pushing the live streaming, pushing video into search. I mean, it's an ongoing journey. All right, well, before we leave Amazon, and speaking of like customer impact and customer, problems and challenges, let's talk about your last role where you were working directly under Chi Chu. You were focused more broadly on how consumers engage on Amazon. What did you learn in that role, in either or both of how consumers actually engage that surprised you, or in executing the science of measuring how consumers engage?
Gosh, I learned so much in that role. Chi is like a walking PhD. He was one of the best teachers in my entire life. And that role was absolutely incredible. And the people I got to work with in that role, but that again could be a whole other podcast just with what game changers look like and what innovators look like. We were really obsessed with consumer engagement, and specifically, how could we help people go from intent to impact as quickly as possible? She oversaw all of consumer engagement, and I was his, air quotes, product advisor. So I got to work across the org on different things. It was a time when chatbots were starting to really pick up speed. But in true Amazon way, they don't want to just adopt something because it's a new technology. I mean, Amazon invented a lot of the technologies that we get to play with today. But instead, we wanted to look at, hey, is there a customer problem to solve? And what can we do about that? So again, we looked at where are we seeing customer pain points and how can we streamline them? And one of the things that we did is we created multiple, what we called single turn chatbots. And we looked at in search, could we track where there were high reformulations, meaning people would come in, search for something, not find it, and search again, which was an indicator that we could present something that was easier for what that customer intent was in that moment. And so we created these single turn chat bots, and arguably it was before AI and bots really got kind of buzzy and cool. But what was cool is it was a science that customers didn't need to see or know. They just saw that at the very top of their search results, something was more astute. It was more predicated on what they were looking for, what they were thinking about when they were looking for it, because we would train on and we would create content that would show up based on intent. And then, of course, the search results would show up there as well. But it was a test for how can we put more rapid face out single turn at the top of that. And it was a lot of fun. But the biggest learning really, again, was look at what the customer problem is and solve it as elegantly as possible. Don't make the customer have to think about what the technology is. The technology is behind the scenes. The technology really doesn't matter. Solving and delighting for customers is what matters. And that's what we obsessed.
Yeah, that's great. And there's so many brilliant people who worked at Amazon. And I know, it isn't always the easiest culture, but boy, the opportunity to intermingle with people doing incredible things and playing on these like massive scale is just awesome. That sounds like so much fun, and what a rich experience that would have been.
I loved it. I'll tell you, I loved almost every second of it. But truly, it shaped a lot of how I work now, and it was such an incredible experience. Just the coolest people and big problems that we got to solve.
Yeah, that is so exciting. All right, so let's move forward to Nike. You were the VP of MarTech and personalization, but your role was really about content, where essentially you were working on apps to get people to work out more. So we see the seeds of the Les Mills there, and presumably buy more Nike gear. So tell us about that. I'm particularly curious if you were targeting athletes or casual users who needed more motivation and tools to get going.
Oh gosh, there's a lot in there. So Nike is one of the most amazing brands, and it was a great company to be at. In MarTech, I was on the digital product side and working with engineering to build solutions, but we partnered across multiple teams at Nike. And our goal, and Nicole Hubbard came up with this phrase, which I think was so brilliant, was we wanted to make people feel and make them do. Nike says that if you have a body, you're an athlete, and it's truly a company predicated on how can we inspire and get people to move and get people to participate in sport, and that can be anything. There's an asterisk on sport. It can mean walking, running, football, soccer. In this country, I keep getting confused on which is which, but tennis, any kind of sport. And in MarTech, we wanted to enable the ability to plan, produce, and publish the right content faster and easier, so that we could go from an idea to getting something out there to inspire and delight people quickly. And then I also had the great benefit of leading the activity apps, training and running, where we just wanted to inspire people to move. We wanted to get them to get up and get going every day, even if it was a little bit of movement or a lot, based on research-backed content and movement. Both of them, again, kind of building on the Amazon ethos, were about how do we start, in this case, Nike calls people who move the athlete. How can we start with the athlete and figure out either what they need or what will inspire them and work back from there? And then how can we continuously learn and get better? And so I got to work deep on the tech and product side to create the mechanisms and the capabilities to serve that. And then with groups of just brilliant people who were creating the content that literally moved people, mentally and physically moved people. So it was a ton of fun. A lot of similarities with Amazon. Start with the customer, work back from there, and obsess what's going to help go from what does somebody want or where's their pain point. In some cases, it could be something that you don't even know that you want, inspiration to move or inspiration to participate in sport as a fan or as an athlete. And then helping people reduce the barriers just to go.
All right.
Yeah.
So at this point, the move to Les Mills feels practically or preordained. You've got this awesome framework that you've been working through in all your careers to know how to evolve your content. Can you talk us through that? Can you talk us through the framework that you use when you're given one of these sort of content, meets action challenges? How do you think through that?
Les Mills does feel a little bit preordained. I absolutely love it here. I'm a runner too, and I love, sometimes I hate fitness because I would rather stay in bed, but I know after the fact that I will love it. But just like with my previous experiences, we look at what is somebody's intent or what's the pain point and how do we help them with that? I think Les Mills is a fascinating company predicated on amazing group fitness content, and specifically content and workouts to music. Music's a big part of what we do and how we get people to feel and how we really get people to move, either in a live group fitness class, something that would be in a gym or a club, or in an app. And we have a brilliant co-founder, and she heads up the group training and the content, Jackie Mills. And in her world, there are PDs who come up with the different programs and different content, and they'll research it and test how it feels to the music for both the in real life, how content comes together in real life, and then when we are preparing it to record to send to the gyms, how it will later manifest in the app. And so I think the framework of this, it's I don't want to sound glib, it is really both an art and a science, and actually it truly is a science. We research all the content we do. We work with universities, and we research and we test the content we do before we even release it. And so there is a science backed by that. Jackie is a doctor, just absolutely brilliant woman, and she really knows, and her team really obsesses what's going to help people, what's going to help them move, what's going to help them perform better, what's going to truly drive results. On the framework for how we think about the evolution of the content, we really think about what is going to move people now and where. And so in that, one of our flagship kinds of content is called Body Pump, where you lift weights, and it's a freaking hard class, and it's absolutely amazing because it makes me feel like Wonder Woman at the end of class, and exhausted, and like I want to kiss the floor and not get up for a long time. But we're also seeing that people move in different ways, and so we've been researching what are different kinds of content that people need, where, and how. And so we test things like trainer series or more mindfulness content in the app, bar content. More is coming out, and we test based on our research, what are people going to engage with? And then we also test different durations. We test different cuts of it. And we produce the content that, again, qualifies to show up in our licensed gyms. So gyms will pay us for license. They'll pay us to get a license to have the group training programs. And then they work with a trained and certified instructor who gets certified in the different kinds of content that we've researched and produced. And then this content also qualifies to show up in our Les Mills Plus app. But it's a continuous process of what are movers seeking? What do people want? What's going to move them? What's going to inspire them to go into a class or to open their app and to move? And then we plan and produce that and distribute it through our network. And then we continuously test what's working, what do we need to refine, and it's never done. I mean, obviously, we've been going for 50 years, and I think we're just getting started with this flywheel of how do we move people? We call it omni-channel. How do we move people in real life and digitally? How do those complement each other? And it comes from what's going to get a mover inspired to get up and to get moving, and what's going to bring them back again, because it feels so good and it's so lovable when they did it.
Is just also fascinating. So I've got so many questions. So music, I want to first ask about that because I'm fascinated by it. Does music, and it's probably a combination of all of this, but does it make it more entertaining? Does it make, therefore, easier? Does it make people perform better, and therefore it's a perform enhancing it's a PED, a perform enhancing device, as opposed to a drug? Or does it help with retention? They come back because of the involvement of the music. I'm just sort of curious, what is the role that music in your mind is playing as the glue?
All of it. I think we know that music to different beats can help people move. And then we also know people love music. They follow specific artists or specific genres or specific types of music, and it helps them get in flow or get in groove. And so music complements the movement and vice versa a little bit. They implicitly go hand in hand and help people go. I don't know that you would ever see a group fitness class without music, maybe a silent yoga class, but what you do tend to see is you'll walk by a class and you'll see people moving and grooving and lifting weights to the beat of music because it's in them, it's making them feel. And people follow, again, different genres or different artists or different types of music, just like they'll fall in love with different types of fitness and different instructors. And we find that the two together, the music complementing the movement, is magical. It's just, it helps inspire, delight, encourage, motivate people. Now, of course, sometimes people will want to do things in silence, which is great. And we have some things that are sans music, but we do find that it's a big part of what we do. So much so to the fact that we even have our own recording studio here in New Zealand, because music is deeply important to movement.
Yep. I love it. It's tapping into an existing passion that everyone has and feels painless. That's not quite the right word, but using one passion to open up another passion. That strikes me as brilliant. I mean, and again, music is always part of working out for sure, but it feels like you've done it in a much more deliberate. It's not just there as again, to keep the beat up, but to actually facilitate people's change behavior. And I wonder if there's some lessons in other industries or for other products, that same idea of using one passion point to facilitate another. Topic for another day. Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk about the B2B side. So much of what you've done has been focusing on the end consumer, right? And thinking about their intent. But now you've got this whole B2B angle, and just talk to me about that. I'm curious, for example, like, is it an easy sell? Like, are other fitness brands? Because again, you're not directly competing. And I don't think people would be like, oh, if we let Les Mills in, they're going to open up a studio next door and put us out of business if we've co-branded them. But I wonder if they feel like they are outsourcing. Do they ever feel like they're outsourcing a critical piece of their own thing? Or are they like, these guys are so far ahead, this is just such a competitive advantage that it's an easy sell? And, and what have you learned about the difference between end consumer marketing and B2B marketing when you're now in this role where you're kind of doing both at the same time? Is it easy to do both at the same time, or does it take a mentality shift?
It's a great question. I think it's been an evolution here. So Les Mills started
as a gym.
With our roots, well, as a gym in New Zealand, but then also our roots in growing the business. So there's LMNZ. I'm sounding very Kiwi there, and then LMI. And LMI International is the company that I'm part of, and that's who sells and distributes to clubs and certifies instructors and has the direct-to-consumer experience. And then we do have gyms only in New Zealand. And so LMI, it started selling into clubs. So our roots are in that. Our roots and our DNA is in great content to music, but then our business roots are more in the B2B aspect. And we really do obsess how we serve clubs. we launched Les Mills Plus. Initially, actually, we launched it as LMOD, Les Mills On Demand, 8 years ago this week, which is pretty neat. It's our birthday, but it really just started growing a lot more during COVID because lots of people were stuck at home. They couldn't get to the gym. Gyms were closed, unfortunately, and people couldn't work out. And through that, in the very beginning of LMOD, gyms did think that it was competition. They thought that this would take movers away from the gym. To the point on starting with B2B and selling into clubs, and I really think about it as how do we serve clubs, and then how do we empower and serve instructors? We train and certify them, but how do we serve them? That's on the B2B side. That's what builds the ecosystem. That's what gets more people moving. And we do view a critical part of our job is how do we help them be as successful as possible? And so with clubs, we have, we go in and we give them marketing materials, we give them research that they can use, we give them tips on how to serve their club members and their movers. We have continuous research that comes out all the time that we give into clubs. So it's not just a one-time sale and we go away. We want them to do great. We want their classes to be full. We want their weight floor to be full. We want the clubs to be full because we want people to move, and that is good for them and good for business. And it's also good for us. Back to the point on LM Plus and on the digital experience launching, when it first came out, clubs did see it as competition. They thought, oh my gosh, you're just going to pull people away from the club and have them working out on an app. But actually what we found is post-COVID, a good percentage of people are working out in a club. And from our research, 80% of people also want a companion app at home. And so we view this as mutually beneficial to the club and to the mover, because we can provide great content that shows up in club, the group fitness setting, and then great content that complements that when people can't get into the club. And we view it more as a flywheel where they go hand in hand, and we can inspire people to keep moving, which will keep the clubs full. And then more and more, our key metric is what's our movers per week? How do we get more people working out per week at any touch point? But they really complement each other. So to the point of the B2B sale, it's much more education, and you used the word service before, and I really love that word because it's how can we best help them? How can we give them the tools to make group fitness great? We have this website called Connect where clubs can find instructors who are certified. We want to reduce all barriers to entry and make it dead simple for them to get great content with the right teachers, the right certifications. They get access to all of the research. Just make it easy. And if we can help clubs fill the club, we all win. We have grown the entire pie for everybody. Many clubs will have multiple different kinds of group fitness content, not just Les Mills. And then again, we want to complement that with digital so that we can keep more people inspired, which should grow the total base, which will then help power clubs even more. So we see them going hand in hand.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Because it's all about building habit, and everything I've always heard about this area is if you get people and they work out for 6 months, they will work out for the rest of their lives. But it is getting that initial traction and building those habits. And like you say, like, you know, we all wake up in the morning and think like, oh, I just want to sink back into the pillow. But it is when you are able to see forward and realize that if you don't get out one at the end of the run, you're going to feel great. And you're actually going to feel worse if you don't run, you know, than if you did. And so, so that makes all the sense. And I love the certifying instructors. I feel like that is a big theme, and what digital has enabled is this ability to do education outside of the classroom. All right. And making people experts in all these different areas and raising that bar and that quality is only going to lead to stickier consumer experiences. And so I love that one as well. Actually, and one of the things that you mentioned in our pre-call that surprised me was, I don't know, I have felt like the world is starting to become a healthier place. There's so much awareness of nutrition issues and the benefits of exercise. And you were telling me just not the case. Can you sort of rattle that off? Because for anybody who thinks that the opportunity in fitness and to get a dream job like yours is closed off, it is just not true. So I don't mean to be Debbie Downer, but can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yes, fitness is talked about more. And yes, content is more accessible through different channels, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all different channels. And by the way, we engage in those channels. The problem is with a lot of that content, people can actually get hurt. A lot of it's not research backed. So I think the people searching the content just need to be mindful who's making it and is it actually real? Is it legitimate? But on the why, and on part of my why I do this every day is fitness. Well, it's getting talked about more, and I'm so happy that you're talking about it on the podcast today and that other people are looking at it. In the world, it's actually declining. The World Health Organization came out with a fitness report, and reading it was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking for me as just a human who wants people to feel good, and as a mom, and as somebody who used to work with younger kids as well. But in the World Health Organization article, it noted that 25% of people do not meet the global recommended activity as of now. And 80% of the world's adolescent population is insufficiently active, meaning kids are getting out and playing less, they're moving less, they're participating in less sport. And by the way, it's fine if kids don't want to participate in organized sport, but we still want them to move because we know that healthy bodies can change how they think and function in the world. I see that in my own kids. And that's slightly terrifying to me. As the population of our planet is growing, movement and activity levels are going down. And I have not seen, except I bet you it exists out there, direct causation. But mental well-being is also going down. And so you think, gosh, we're getting people who are moving less and who are less active. And we're having a population where mental health is in the decline. We've got to do something about this. We've got to get people moving, inspired in any way, just to feel good. Because when you feel good, when your body feels good or your mind feels good, I run also, and I'll tell you 95% of it's for my brain, not for my body. I just want to go and be in my meditative state and sweat and listen to loud music. But we want to bring that to everybody. We want to make that accessible. And so one of the things I touched on earlier is this notion of born to move and helping kids to move. You know, I have two 13-year-old boys, and I think about, they have always been so lucky because they've had access to sport. But how can we just help more kids do that? How can we help them find something that they will love and build that habit? Because if we can help people build the habit younger, then we can help them as grownups too, as adults, keeping healthy habits. But yeah, right now it's pretty scary. I'm glad that the World Health Organization is measuring this, and I'm glad that people are leaning in to fix it. I think it's great that the market segment of fitness seems to be growing with different apps coming and going and different businesses starting. We've got to do more here. And this is one of the key things Les Mills is leaning into. How can we make training, group fitness, movement accessible to all? And how can we make it so that it actually makes people happy? We have a new brand, Choose Happy. We just want to make it delightful and make it easy for people.
It's phenomenal. The 80% of adolescents not getting enough activity is astonishing, and you're right, 100% terrifying, because that's a downward spiral that's going to be hard to reverse. And so I love that you guys are making all those classes, and that's phenomenal, because you're absolutely right. It's funny, a few years ago I went to visit my doctor, and he's like, "How's the running going?" And I was like, "Oh, it's down. I've been so stressed out lately." And he looks at me and he goes, "You know, it's really good for reducing stress." And I was like, "Oh, you
Yes.
SOB." And so
Yes.
that was it. Like, I haven't let off since then. And so it's so true. It is so
So
true.
true. And it's hard to remember sometimes because you get in a rut and you need that boost of motivation or the ability to get out. And then once you get moving, I don't think I've ever heard a person say, gosh, I really regret that workout, unless they got injured. Then they probably will regret the workout. But I have never come back from a body pump class or a bar class or a run and say, wish I didn't do that. I just never. I always feel better.
Great point. That is a great point. Who has ever regretted working out? You're exactly right.
Yeah.
My God. All right. Well, I want to do a fun one before we have to wrap this up, which is, what advice would you give to somebody thinking about moving abroad for work? Like, I see you as this adventurer in that way too. Something I've never been brave enough to do. But what should people think through if they're thinking about moving abroad for work?
There's a lot to think through, but I think the biggest one is, what memories do you want to make? For us, we had always wanted to move abroad, and I personally love fitness, and I came across this amazing brand that gave me the most amazing opportunity to do it. But and then the fact that our boys were turning 13, we kind of felt like it was our last shot. The reality is, I think there's no last shot, to be completely honest. I think it's, are you in it to make memories and to have adventure? Moving abroad is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's totally hard. You have to pack up your house, pack up your life, figure out a visa, get your passport updated, get all kinds of crazy vaccines and x-rays and weird appointments. And we had to submit something like 10 years of Christmas cards to prove that we were married, which is absolutely ridiculous. The whole thing seems like this crazy puzzle. But I think the big advice is, what kinds of experiences do you want, and go make them happen. Like for us, we wanted to explore the world. We love water, and so we wanted to be somewhere near water, and we love the outdoors, and so we wanted to be somewhere we could get on a mountain bike, or right now we live at the bottom of a volcano, which sounds freaking cool, I'm not gonna lie, to get to say on a podcast. But what kind of memories do you want to make? And then go make them, because you can. And yeah, it's going to be scary, but there's no set supposed to's. There's, what do you want to create? What do you want to invent? What do you want to explore? And then make it happen. And it is going to be hard. It's not just a easy, I mean, maybe for some people it is. I work with one guy who moved to New Zealand with one suitcase and has been here for years. And I'm totally in awe of that. For me, being a mom of 2 kids and a wife and working, our adventure was a little bit different than that. Go with the flow and make it good and create the memories that you want. Be kind to yourself. If you're moving with family, make sure that you're all in it together. Have the discussions. Know that it's going to be hard, but then also know that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So go and explore, climb up the volcano, go jump off a building with a bungee cord on. I wouldn't just like do it in a clean, organized, safe way. But make the adventures that you want, because you're the only person that gets to make the adventures for you. So I think if you want it, do it, because we get one shot to do that. So have fun doing it.
It's true. We only get one ride on the Ferris wheel. So that is amazing. Well, this has been great. I've learned so much. I loved reconnecting, and I'm super appreciative for all the insights. I'm sure the audience has learned a ton. Thank you, Amber. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Generation Influence.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. New episodes of Generation Influence drop every Wednesday, so be sure to check us out and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You can find information on next week's guest in the description below. Hope to see you then and there.